Picture this, an island, lush and green, marked clearly on centuries-old maps drawn by the hands of skilled cartographers. Sailors whispered its name in awe, explorers sought its shores, and legends spoke of its impossible beauty, a place where time stood still and magic felt as real as the ocean's spray. Then, one day, it was gone, erased from every modern atlas, vanished as if it had never existed at all. Yet, to this day, mysterious signals still pulse from the empty stretch of sea where it was once believed to lie. This is not a work of fiction. This is the haunting mystery of Hy-Brasil, an island that disappeared from every map but refuses to fade from our imagination. For centuries, this phantom isle off the coast of Ireland has captivated historians, adventurers, and dreamers alike. Its name alone evokes a sense of wonder and intrigue, rooted in ancient Celtic myths and woven into the very fabric of maritime lore. How could an entire island simply vanish? Why do strange signals continue to echo from its last known location, defying explanation even in our age of advanced technology? These questions pull us into a story that blurs the line between myth and reality, challenging what we think we know about the world and its hidden histories. In this video, we're setting sail into the heart of this enigma. Together, we'll trace Hy-Brasil's path through ancient maps and forgotten journals, unpack the scientific theories that attempt to explain its disappearance, and listen closely to those eerie, persistent signals that keep the mystery alive. We'll meet the explorers who risked everything to find it, the storytellers who kept its legend burning, and the modern-day investigators still searching for answers. This is more than a tale of a lost island. It's a journey into the unknown corners of human curiosity, a reminder that some mysteries are not meant to be solved easily, but to inspire us to look deeper, wonder louder, and imagine wider. So come with us as we unravel one of history's most compelling maritime puzzles and explore why an island vanished from every atlas but still sends signals. Long before satellites could peer down upon every inch of our planet, the world was a canvas of the known and the unknown, and it was on these vast, empty stretches of parchment that legends were born. Among the most persistent was Hy-Brasil, an island that began to materialize on European maps in the 14th century. Picture a typical medieval chart filled with sea monsters and swirling winds at the edges of the known world, and there it would be, a perfectly circular landmass, often split neatly in two by a mysterious river or a deep channel, sitting steadfastly in the Atlantic Ocean west of Ireland. This wasn't a random doodle. It was a consistent feature charted by respected cartographers for hundreds of years, a place that the mapmakers of the era truly believed existed. The name itself, Hy-Brasil, whispers its noble origins. It stems from the old Irish term Brasil, which translates to high king or signifies something of immense nobility and worth. This wasn't just a random rock in the ocean. It was conceived of as a place of supreme beauty and untold wealth, a paradise shrouded in perpetual mist. The legend said it was a hidden realm, one that broke through the veil of our ordinary world only once every 7 years, becoming visible to the lucky or the destined before fading back into its enchanted solitude. These captivating stories weren't just campfire tales. They were the very data that early mapmakers used. In an age without GPS or precise navigational tools, the logs and stories of sailors were a primary source of geographical information. When multiple sailors returned from treacherous Atlantic voyages speaking of a misty island on the horizon, It was enough evidence to warrant a permanent place on the map. These sightings, though likely mirages, storms, or even simple navigational errors, became woven into the fabric of European maritime tradition. For centuries, the island was as real as Ireland or England to those who studied these charts. The turning point came with the age of exploration. As ships became sturdier and navigational instruments like the astrolabe and eventually the sextant became more refined, the empty ocean where Hy-Brasil was supposed to be became a source of frustration. Expeditions were launched with the explicit purpose of finding and charting this elusive island, but each returned with the same report: nothing but open water. The most famous of these was perhaps the voyage of Captain John Nisbet in the late 17th century, who claimed a brief landing, but his story of an old man providing gold and silver only added a layer of fantastical hoax to the legend rather than proof. By the time the 19th century rolled around, with the advent of truly systematic hydrographic surveys, the truth was inescapable: there was no island. One by one, cartographers, now armed with empirical data and scientific rigor, were forced to scrape Hy-Brasil from their copper plates and printing blocks. By the time the British Admiralty was producing its famously accurate nautical charts, the Phantom Isle had completely vanished from official cartography. This erasure from the maps, however, did nothing to erase it from the human imagination. This historical journey from accepted fact to debunked myth is the essential foundation of our story. It shows us how powerfully stories can shape our perception of reality, how a compelling narrative can literally put a place on the map for 500 years. It demonstrates the fascinating transition from a world understood through folklore and anecdote to one measured by science and evidence. Yet, the persistence of the legend, its refusal to fade away even after being officially deleted, hints at something deeper: a human need for mystery, for the existence of enchanted places just beyond the edge of our understanding. This context sets the stage for the specific, incredible accounts that kept, and continue to keep, the legend of Hy-Brasil vibrantly alive. To truly understand the magnetic pull of this lost island, we must first travel back through the mists of Irish mythology, where Hy-Brasil was not merely a physical place, but a gateway to another realm. In the rich tapestry of Celtic lore, it was known as an otherworld, a concept deeply embedded in the pre-Christian psyche. This was no ordinary island. It was a paradisiacal domain, a land of eternal summer and impossible beauty, untouched by sorrow, sickness, or death. The beings who inhabited this enchanted isle were not simple mortals. They were the Tuatha De Danann, a race of god-like figures of immense power and wisdom, who are said to have retreated to the invisible parts of the world after being defeated by the ancestors of the modern Irish. They possessed the secret of eternal youth, living in a state of perfect harmony and abundance, and Hy-Brasil was one of their most sacred and hidden sanctuaries. The most captivating aspect of these ancient tales is their treatment of time. The island existed on a different temporal plane entirely. A single day spent in the bliss of Hy-Brasil could equate to 100 years passing in the outside world. Stories tell of fortunate, or perhaps cursed, sailors who accidentally breached the veil, finding themselves welcomed by the immortal inhabitants. They would feast, listen to enchanting music, and witness wonders beyond comprehension, only to return to their homes and discover that everyone they had ever known was long dead. Their villages crumbled to dust and the world utterly changed. This wasn't just a fun fantasy. It was a profound mythological device. It served as a warning and a lesson about the dangers and allure of the unknown, and the sacred boundary between the mortal world and the divine. These powerful narratives were not written down for centuries. They lived and breathed in the oral tradition, passed from one generation of sinchai or storyteller to the next around flickering hearths. It was only with the arrival of Christianity and the efforts of monastic scribes that these stories were eventually recorded, most notably in texts like the Liber Gabala Eren, the Book of Invasions. The monks, in writing these pagan myths, often reinterpreted them through a Christian lens. Hy-Brasil was sometimes reframed as a kind of earthly Eden or a land blessed by a saint, a clever syncretism that allowed the old stories to survive within a new religious framework. This blending ensured the legend's endurance, giving it a sanctioned, if mysterious, place in the cultural record. Crucially, the myths provided a perfect, self-sealing explanation for why the island could not be found by mere cartographers. It was protected by powerful enchantments, shrouded in a perpetual mist that made it invisible to the unworthy eye. It was said to become tangible only under very specific conditions, perhaps once every 7 years or on a particular holy day, or when the veil between worlds was at its thinnest, like during the festival of Samhain, which we now know as Halloween. This wasn't a geographical puzzle to be solved with a better ship or a more accurate compass. It was a spiritual test. Only those pure of heart or blessed by fate would ever be granted the vision of its shores. This mythological framework provided an unassailable cultural logic for its disappearance from maps. It hadn't sunk, it hadn't been a mistake. It had simply chosen to remain hidden, retreating from a world that had become too cynical, too scientific to believe in magic. This deep-rooted belief in a world just beyond our sight is the bedrock upon which all the later sightings, searches, and signals were built. The myth of a hidden paradise was one thing, but the supposed sightings by seasoned mariners gave the legend of Hy-Brasil a tangible weight that was impossible for the map-making world to ignore. As European ships began to push further into the Atlantic, the logs of experienced captains started to fill with bewildering entries that seemed to confirm the old Irish tales. Among the most notable was the famed Venetian explorer John Cabot. Following his historic voyage to Newfoundland in 1497, Cabot reported that he had indeed reached the island of Hy-Brasil, further fueling the belief in its existence and its location within reach of determined navigation. His account, backed by his considerable reputation, was a powerful endorsement that helped cement the island's place on charts for another 2 centuries. These weren't just simple claims of seeing land. The sailors' descriptions were often eerily consistent and deeply strange. They spoke of an emerald island that would materialize suddenly on the horizon, often cloaked in an unnaturally thick and persistent fog that seemed to glow with an internal, ethereal light. Others reported bizarre magnetic disturbances that sent their compass needles spinning wildly, suggesting some unknown force at work. These phenomena led many rational minds of the era to speculate that they were witnessing a complex mirage, perhaps a Fata Morgana, where layers of air at different temperatures distort and elevate distant coastlines, creating the illusion of floating cities or uncharted islands. For superstitious sailors, however, it was pure magic, a confirmation that they were brushing against the edges of an enchanted world. The most detailed and sensational account came from Captain John Nisbet in 1674. His story reads like a classic adventure tale. Sailing from Ireland to France, his ship was allegedly enveloped by a sudden, mysterious fog. When it cleared, they found themselves perilously close to an unknown island. Nisbet and his crew decided to go ashore, where they claimed to have been greeted by a solitary, incredibly old man who provided them with food, fuel, and most tantalizingly, gold and silver. The crew supposedly spent an entire day on the island before returning to their ship, only for the mist to descend once more. When it lifted again, the island had vanished without a trace. While most historians now regard Nisbet's story as a clever hoax, perhaps concocted to sell a sensational story or even to attract financial backing for another voyage, its impact was immediate and profound. It was a story that perfectly captured the public's imagination and was widely circulated, adding a new layer of detailed, first-hand testimony to the growing legend. What's truly fascinating is how these unverified anecdotes directly shaped the geography of the known world. In an age without satellite imagery, the collective testimony of sailors was a primary data source. When multiple reputable captains reported similar coordinates for a lush, green island, cartographers had little choice but to include it. Hy-Brasil became a cartographic fact based entirely on this hearsay, a permanent fixture on maps produced by the most respected names in the field. This demonstrates a powerful truth about human knowledge. Sometimes a story told convincingly enough can become its own form of reality, influencing exploration, commerce, and science for generations. These persistent reports set the stage for a new phase in the island's history, a shift from accidental encounters to deliberate, organized searches to finally claim its fabled riches. If the stories of sailors gave Hy-Brasil its breath, it was the mapmakers who gave it a body and a place in the world. The transition from whispered tale to inked coastline is one of the most fascinating chapters in this mystery, and it was master cartographers like Abraham Ortelius and Gerardus Mercator who played the lead roles. In the 1500s, these men were the rock stars of geography, their maps the ultimate authority on the shape of the known world, and on their meticulously crafted charts, nestled in the Atlantic west of Ireland, Hy-Brasil was almost always present. Ortelius's seminal world atlas, the Theatrum Orbis Terrarum, and Mercator's revolutionary projection both featured the island not as a decorative flourish, but as an accepted geographic fact. Their immense influence meant that for generations of explorers, merchants, and monarchs, Hy-Brasil was as real as any other port of call. This wasn't a case of careless drafting or wild imagination. For these Renaissance scholars, mapmaking was a delicate balance of art, science, and reported evidence. In an era where vast portions of the globe remained literally uncharted territory, cartographers faced a dilemma: leave these spaces blank or fill them with the best information available, even if that information came from unverified sailor logs and ancient legends. They chose the latter, and these speculative lands, known as Phantom Islands, became common features. Hy-Brasil was one of the most persistent, its repeated appearances in maritime accounts giving it a credibility that other myths lacked. The mapmakers were not creating a fiction, they were synthesizing all the knowledge of their time, and that knowledge was deeply intertwined with myth. A map was not just a navigational tool, it was a cultural document reflecting what people believed to be true about the edges of their world. The slow death of Hy-Brasil on the map is a story of technological progress. The invention of more precise navigational instruments like the marine chronometer, which finally solved the problem of calculating longitude at sea, meant ships could pinpoint their location with unprecedented accuracy. As the 18th century gave way to the 19th, the British Admiralty began its Great Hydrographic Survey, tasked with mapping the world's oceans with scientific rigor. Ships equipped with these new tools crisscrossed the North Atlantic, taking depth soundings and making detailed charts. Time and again, they sailed directly over the spot where Hy-Brasil was supposed to rise from the waves, and time and again, their leads found nothing but deep water below. The empirical evidence was irrefutable. One by one, the world's great mapping institutions had to concede that the island was not there. By the middle of the 1800s, Hy-Brasil had been quietly, officially, deleted from every respected atlas and nautical chart. It had been erased. This erasure marks a profound shift in human history, the moment when the map finally ceased to be a record of belief and became a document of measurable reality. It was the triumph of the scientific method over folklore, of verified data over anecdote, yet the legacy of the island refused to fade with its ink. It persisted and even thrived in poetry, song, and story. The very act of being removed from the official record seemed to liberate Hy-Brasil, transforming it from a potential geographical error into a permanent symbol of wonder. It became a powerful reminder that our understanding of the world is not fixed, but is constantly being redrawn, refined, and sometimes completely rewritten. The cartographers' pens had given it form, and their erasers had given it its most potent magic, the allure of the lost. This journey from accepted fact to debunked myth sets the stage for the next logical question, one that moves from the realm of history into the realm of science. If the island was never there, what were all those sailors actually seeing? So what could explain centuries of sailors all reporting an island in the same general area, only for it to vanish without a trace? Science offers some compelling theories that ground this fantastical legend in the hard realities of our planet's geology. One of the most persuasive ideas is that Hy-Brasil wasn't a myth at all, but a very real piece of land that simply disappeared beneath the waves. We know this happens. The most famous example is, of course, Atlantis, but the process is a fundamental part of Earth's history. The landmass we now call the Celtic Shelf, the submerged ledge off the western coast of Ireland, was indeed dry land during the last ice age. Think about that for a moment. Around 12,000 years ago, when much of the world's water was locked up in massive glaciers, sea levels were dramatically lower, several hundred feet lower, in fact. What is now a stormy, deep section of the Atlantic Ocean would have been a coastal plain, a rolling landscape connected to mainland Ireland, possibly even featuring hills that stood as islands in a much smaller sea. As the planet warmed and the glaciers began their great melt, all that water had to go somewhere, and it poured back into the ocean basins, steadily and inexorably reclaiming the land. This wasn't a sudden, catastrophic event like a flood from a movie. It was a slow-motion drowning that took place over thousands of years, a process far too gradual for any single human civilization to witness in its entirety. A small island or a prominent hill on that Celtic shelf could have been one of the last holdouts, a diminishing piece of land that remained above water long enough for the earliest seafarers to spot it and mark its existence. Its eventual full submersion would have been absolute, leaving no trace for the mapmakers of a later age. This theory is given a tantalizing shred of credibility by modern oceanography. Sonar surveys and seafloor mapping of the area have occasionally revealed anomalous formations, strange bumps and ridges on the seabed that don't quite match the surrounding geology. Some researchers have pointed to these as possible evidence of human activity or drowned landscapes, though it's crucial to stress that no definitive proof, like the ruins of a settlement, has ever been found. These could just as easily be natural rock formations, but they provide just enough ambiguity to keep the geological hypothesis alive. There's another, completely different scientific explanation that doesn't require a lost landmass at all, but instead plays tricks with the mind and the atmosphere, the mirage. Specifically, a complex optical illusion known as a Fata Morgana. This phenomenon occurs when layers of air at sharply different temperatures, like cold air sitting over frigid water with a layer of warmer air above it, act like a lens, bending and distorting light. A distant coastline, a ship, or even a bank of clouds on the horizon can be stretched, inverted, and magnified into a breathtaking image of a towering, seemingly solid island floating in the sky. For exhausted sailors who had been weeks at sea, spotting such a phantom on the horizon would have been utterly convincing. The name itself, Fata Morgana, comes from the Italian for Morgan Le Fay, the Arthurian sorceress, because the effect was so spellbinding it was attributed to fairy magic. This would perfectly explain the descriptions of Hy-Brasil appearing suddenly from a peculiar haze, looking impossibly lush and then vanishing just as quickly as the atmospheric conditions shifted. It also accounts for the reports of strange magnetic disturbances. In a state of awe and confusion, sailors might misinterpret a simple navigational error or a local magnetic anomaly as part of the island's enchantment. These two theories, the geological and the optical, are not mutually exclusive. It's entirely possible that a Fata Morgana mirage regularly manifests over the very spot where a real island once stood thousands of years ago, an incredible coincidence that would forge an unbreakable legend. Together, they provide a rational, evidence-based framework for the stories, transforming them from pure fantasy into a potential case of misunderstood natural phenomena. This scientific grounding makes the next part of the mystery even more intriguing, because if the island is truly gone, why does its last known location continue to send out inexplicable signals that baffle experts to this very day? The mystery of Hy-Brasil took a dramatic and modern turn in the late 20th century, moving from the pages of history books into the realm of active, real-world investigation. It's one thing for ancient sailors to speak of mists and enchantments, but it's quite another for contemporary ships, equipped with the latest technology, to detect something truly unexplainable. In recent decades, there have been multiple credible reports of strange signals emanating from the very stretch of ocean where the island was once so confidently drawn. These aren't whispers of ghostly apparitions. They are concrete, electronic anomalies captured on sonar screens and radio receivers. The most common reports describe low-frequency pings, a kind of persistent, sonar-like sound that seems to come from deep below the surface, and intermittent radio signals that crackle through the airwaves before vanishing as suddenly as they appeared. For the crews who experience them, these aren't myths, they are puzzling data points that defy immediate explanation, instantly reanimating the centuries-old legend for a new technological age. So what could possibly be causing these eerie transmissions from the deep? Scientists and researchers have put forward several compelling natural explanations that anchor the phenomenon in the hard realities of geology and physics. One of the leading theories points to powerful activity deep beneath the seafloor. The area is geologically active, and the process of methane venting provides a fascinating possible source for these sounds. Imagine vast reservoirs of methane gas trapped frozen in sediments under immense pressure. When this gas manages to escape, it doesn't just bubble up peacefully. It can rupture the seabed, creating violent plumes of gas and sediment that release tremendous acoustic energy. This explosive process can generate loud, low-frequency pings and rumbles that travel for miles through the water, perfectly mimicking the kind of synthetic sonar pings used by submarines. Similarly, the immense stresses of tectonic plates grinding against one another can produce seismic shifts and fractures in the rock. The sounds of these subterranean earthquakes, some too small to be felt on land but loud underwater, could easily be mistaken for something artificial or mysterious by a passing vessel. These natural explanations are powerful because they are testable and observable in other parts of the world's oceans, providing a rational, if no less impressive, source for the signals. Of course, not every mystery in the ocean is a natural one. The modern seascape is crisscrossed with the hidden infrastructure of human enterprise, and this offers another set of plausible answers. The ocean floor in this region is a tangled web of forgotten submarine telegraph and communication cables laid down over more than a century. While most are dormant, these old lines can sometimes carry stray electrical currents or be affected by shifting sediments, potentially generating faint but detectable electromagnetic signals. A far more likely culprit, however, is classified military activity. The North Atlantic is a well-known patrol zone for various navies, and it is a hotbed for submarine operations and naval exercises. The intermittent, strange signals could be the result of advanced sonar systems being tested, underwater communication devices, or even electronic countermeasures designed to be difficult to detect and identify. The very nature of this activity means it would never be publicly confirmed, leaving civilian ship captains and researchers to scratch their heads and wonder. This theory turns the mystery inward, suggesting the signals are not from a lost world, but from the hidden, secretive one we have built ourselves. Yet, for all the logical theories, the sheer persistence of these reports keeps the door open to more extraordinary possibilities. The signals act as a direct, technological echo of the historical sailors' accounts of strange lights and magnetic disturbances. It creates an incredible, almost poetic symmetry. Centuries ago, men in wooden ships saw something that wasn't on the map. Today, men on steel ships hear something that isn't on any frequency chart. This continuity challenges us to hold two ideas in our minds at once. We can fully appreciate the compelling scientific explanations while also acknowledging that the legend itself has a powerful allure that transcends simple debunking. The signals, whether from methane vents or secret navies, have reignited the hunt. They have given a new generation of investigators a tangible thread to pull on, a reason to look at the old charts with fresh eyes and wonder if, just maybe, there is a kernel of truth to the old stories that we simply don't yet have the tools or the perspective to fully understand. This renewed curiosity, fueled by technology's own mysteries, is what leads us directly into the next chapter of the story. The quest to find Hy-Brasil has evolved dramatically from the days of wooden ships and hand-drawn charts, entering an era where technology offers us eyes and ears in the deepest, darkest parts of the ocean. We've moved far beyond the simple compass and sextant. Now, the search is conducted with multi-beam sonar systems that paint incredibly detailed, three-dimensional pictures of the seafloor, revealing canyons, mountains, and even individual shipwrecks with stunning clarity. Satellite altimetry can detect subtle gravitational variations that hint at massive underwater structures, while autonomous underwater drones, or OV, can spend weeks gliding silently through the depths, mapping vast swaths of the seabed with a persistence and precision no human crew could ever match. These tools have completely transformed marine archaeology, allowing us to discover and document real sunken worlds, from ancient harbors swallowed by the Mediterranean to World War II wrecks resting miles below the surface. This very technology, however, has delivered a verdict that is both definitive and deeply puzzling for the legend of Hy-Brasil. Major scientific expeditions, often led by institutions like the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution or funded by National Geographic Societies, have repeatedly scanned the Celtic Shelf and the North Atlantic with these advanced systems. Their goal was not necessarily to find a phantom island, but to create accurate bathymetric maps of the ocean floor. In doing so, they have effectively ruled out the existence of any sizable landmass rising from the depths in the area where Hy-Brasil was historically charted. The seabed there has been thoroughly imaged and the results are clear: no lost island. This should be the end of the story. The scientific data is conclusive, and yet the mystery has not faded. In fact, this very lack of evidence, despite our most powerful tools, has somehow made the enigma even more compelling. It suggests that Hy-Brasil's secret is not a physical one that can be solved with a better sonar ping, but something more complex, something that lives in the space between geology and human perception. The incredible irony is that while these tools haven't found Hy-Brasil, they have proven the core concept behind the legend, that the ocean holds lost worlds. The same technology that erased Hy-Brasil from modern consideration has simultaneously validated the idea of sunken lands by discovering them elsewhere. For instance, sophisticated sonar mapping has revealed Doggerland, a vast tract of land that once connected Great Britain to mainland Europe, a verdant plain home to Mesolithic hunter-gatherers before it was inundated by rising seas. Similarly, off the coast of India, sonar has hinted at what some believe could be structures from a lost civilization in the Gulf of Combat. These tangible discoveries fuel a persistent hope among enthusiasts. They argue that if we can find these places, why not Hy-Brasil? Perhaps our scans have missed a key area, or maybe the island's remnants are so small or deeply buried that they evade our current instruments. This sliver of possibility, this what if, is enough to keep the dream alive, transforming the search from a literal hunt for an island into a metaphorical one for answers to a much deeper puzzle. This entire technological journey demonstrates a fascinating evolution in our quest for understanding. Our methods have shifted from relying on the fallible human eye to deploying flawless electronic sensors, from trusting stories to demanding data. We have never been better equipped to solve ancient mysteries, and yet Hy-Brasil remains stubbornly out of reach. It stands as a powerful testament to the limits of science when confronted with a story that is woven as much from culture and psychology as it is from rock and water. The failure of technology to kill the legend outright speaks volumes about the enduring power of a good story, a power that now propels us away from the sonar screens and into the realm of art, literature, and the human spirit to see how Hy-Brasil has captured our collective imagination for centuries. The legend of Hy-Brasil refused to be confined to the pages of old maps or the logs of forgotten sailors. Instead, it made a magnificent leap into the realm of art and literature, finding a permanent home in the human imagination. This cultural journey ensured the island's immortality long after it had been scrubbed from official charts. The great Irish poet William Butler Yeats, deeply immersed in the Celtic revival movement, wove the island's mystique into his work, portraying it not as a mere physical place, but as a symbol of the spiritual and artistic ideal forever beckoning from just beyond the horizon. For Yeats and his contemporaries, Hy-Brasil became a powerful metaphor for the unattainable, the perfect beauty, the absolute truth, the eternal peace that we perpetually seek but can never quite grasp. It was the ultimate symbol of yearning. This artistic interpretation blossomed across every medium. In visual art, painters captured the island not with geographic precision but with emotional resonance. Canvases from the Romantic period onward depict it as a haunting, ethereal vision, a sliver of emerald green and gold peeking through a bank of luminous, silver mist, often with a lone ship sailing towards it, representing the eternal human quest for something more. These images tap into a universal feeling, that deep-seated notion that there must be a place of greater wonder and meaning just out of sight, a paradise lost that we are always trying to rediscover. This is why the image is so potent. It doesn't require you to believe in the island's existence to feel its emotional pull. The theme found fertile ground in modern storytelling as well. From fantasy novels that reimagine it as the last refuge of ancient magic to science fiction tales that posit it as a cloaked alien outpost or a tear in the fabric of dimensions, Hy-Brasil provides a wonderfully flexible setting. It serves as a blank canvas onto which writers can project our deepest anxieties and greatest hopes about discovery and the unknown. In film and television, its name is often dropped to instantly evoke a sense of ancient mystery and untold danger, a shorthand for a secret history hiding in plain sight. This constant recycling and reimagining in popular culture performs a vital function. It acts as a life support system for the myth, introducing it to each new generation and allowing them to add their own layers of interpretation to the legend. Ultimately, this sprawling cultural impact reveals a profound truth about humanity. We are not solely driven by facts and data, we are storytellers by nature. A myth like Hy-Brasil endures not because of its historical evidence, but because of its narrative power. It gives form to our collective longing for a world untouched by modernity, for a secret waiting to be found, for the thrilling possibility that magic might still exist somewhere. The island's physical absence is precisely what makes it such a perfect cultural vessel. Because it cannot be found, it can never be disproven, and it can forever represent whatever we need it to be, a symbol of lost innocence, a beacon of hope, or a warning about the perils of obsession. This ability to embody our most fundamental themes of loss, discovery, and the delicate boundary between reality and dreams is the true reason the Phantom Isle continues to captivate us, securing its place not in the ocean, but in the very heart of our creative spirit. Hy-Brasil is far from alone in its ghostly existence on the fringes of our maps and our minds. Across the globe and throughout history, cultures have told strikingly similar stories of lands lost to the sea, realms that slipped through the fingers of time. The most famous of these is, of course, Atlantis, first described by the ancient Greek philosopher Plato as a powerful and advanced civilization that angered the gods and was swallowed by the ocean in a single day and night of misfortune. Then there's Lyoness, the Arthurian kingdom said to lie sunken off the coast of Cornwall, its church bells still tolling mournfully beneath the waves for some sailors. The Welsh have Cantref Gwaelod, a fertile land lost to a negligent gatekeeper's mistake, and the Japanese speak of Mu, a Pacific paradise that vanished beneath the waves. On the surface, these stories share a powerful common thread. They all represent a fallen golden age, a paradise lost due to human failing, whether it be arrogance, moral decay, or simple error. They serve as potent cultural warnings against hubris, reminding us that even the greatest of civilizations are fragile in the face of nature or divine will. Yet, when we look closer, Hy-Brasil carves out its own distinct and fascinating niche in this family of lost lands. While Atlantis is often portrayed as a vast, continent-sized empire of incredible technological marvels and complex social structures, Hy-Brasil is almost always described in more intimate, elemental terms. It is not a fallen civilization but an enchanted place, a single, mystical island shrouded in mist, home to otherworldly beings rather than flawed humans. Its story is not one of catastrophic punishment for sin, but one of elusive beauty and gentle retreat from the modern world. Furthermore, its geographical tether is much stronger. Atlantis has been speculatively placed everywhere from the Mediterranean to the Caribbean by countless theorists, its location a global Rorschach test. Lyoness is firmly Cornish. Hy-Brasil, in contrast, is unwaveringly Irish. Its identity is deeply woven into the specific folklore, language, and landscape of Ireland, making it a profoundly regional legend that speaks to a universal theme. This specificity gives it a different kind of power. It feels less like a philosophical allegory and more like a local secret that somehow captured the world's imagination. This incredible pattern of similar myths arising independently across disconnected cultures points to something fundamental in the human psyche. It suggests that these stories are not merely random fictions, but rather collective responses to shared experiences. For coastal communities around the world, the evidence of a changing relationship with the sea was literally at their feet. The discovery of ancient tree stumps on a beach at low tide, or the fishing nets that occasionally hauled up primitive tools carved from stone, provided tangible proof that the land once extended further, that people had lived where there was now only water. Lacking the scientific framework of plate tectonics or glacial melt and sea level rise, the human mind did what it does best. It wove a story. A catastrophic event like a tsunami or a gradual inundation over generations could easily be transformed in the collective memory into a legend of a magnificent city that angered the gods or a beautiful land that was cursed to sink. These myths became the ancient world's way of explaining the unsettling, observable truth that the ground beneath our feet is not as permanent as it seems. Ultimately, these parallel legends of drowned worlds serve as profound metaphors for the human condition itself. They represent our deep-seated fear of loss and our nostalgia for a perceived better time, a pristine past untouched by the complications of the present. They embody the spirit of exploration and the tantalizing allure of the unknown, the hope that just beyond the horizon, there might still be a place of wonder waiting to be found. By placing Hy-Brasil alongside these other myths, we see it not as an isolated oddity, but as part of a grand, global tapestry of storytelling. This comparison doesn't diminish its uniqueness. Instead, it elevates it, showing how a local Irish folktale connects to a universal human urge to make sense of our world, our history, and our own impermanence through the powerful, enduring magic of a well-told story. But why does a story like Hy-Brasil, with no concrete evidence to support it, continue to hold such a powerful grip on us century after century? The answer lies not in the ocean, but deep within the human mind itself. We are hardwired for mystery. Our brains are exquisite pattern recognition machines, constantly scanning our environment for meaning and connection. This incredible ability helped our ancestors spot predators in the tall grass and find edible plants in a dense forest, but it has a fascinating side effect. It sometimes makes us see patterns where none actually exist. This is called apophenia. When a sailor in the 1600s saw a strange bank of fog on the horizon and his compass needle wavered, his brain, steeped in the legend of Hy-Brasil, didn't see random weather and a faulty instrument. It connected the dots and saw proof of an enchanted island. Today, when we hear about an unexplained sonar ping from the same area, that same cognitive machinery whirs to life, effortlessly linking a modern anomaly to an ancient story. This tendency is powerfully reinforced by confirmation bias, our subconscious habit of favoring information that confirms what we already want to believe. Someone enchanted by the idea of Hy-Brasil will naturally gravitate towards the handful of curious sonar readings or old sailor logs that seem to support the legend, while simultaneously discounting the mountains of scientific data and failed expeditions that argue against it. We actively seek out evidence for the reality we desire, creating a self-sustaining loop of belief. This isn't a sign of foolishness, it's a fundamental feature of human psychology. In a world that often feels overwhelmingly mapped, measured, and explained, a mystery like Hy-Brasil offers a thrilling escape. It provides a sanctioned space for wonder, a corner of the map where the rational rules don't seem to apply and anything feels possible. It taps into a deep, almost childlike comfort in believing there are still hidden wonders just beyond the edge of our understanding. This psychological appeal becomes even more potent in our modern, hyper-connected age. With satellites imaging every inch of the globe and information available at our fingertips, the physical world can sometimes feel devoid of genuine secrets. We live in an era of answers which can make the unanswered questions all the more precious. A legend like Hy-Brasil satisfies a profound emotional and imaginative need that pure data cannot. It's not just about an island, it's about the romance of the quest, the allure of the untouchable, and the beautiful, humbling idea that we might not know everything. This enduring fascination shows that myths are far more than just false stories. They are essential tools we use to navigate the world, helping us process the unknown, connect with our past, and keep the flame of curiosity alive. They fulfill a hunger for meaning that transcends proof, reminding us that sometimes the most real things are the ones we can only feel and imagine. The legend of Hy-Brasil has brilliantly navigated the transition from ancient parchment to the digital screen, finding a vibrant and enduring new life in modern media and pop culture. This isn't a story gathering dust in a history book. It's a living, evolving narrative that gets regularly rebooted for a new generation, often with a thrilling supernatural twist. Television series with a fondness for the paranormal have been particularly keen to weave the island into their mythologies. In the long-running show Supernatural, Hy-Brasil is reimagined as a mystical, hidden refuge, a perfect setting for otherworldly encounters that fit seamlessly into the show's universe of monsters, angels, and demons. This kind of portrayal does something fascinating. It takes a centuries-old maritime mystery and injects it with modern fantasy elements, making the ancient feel exciting and new. The world of video games has proven to be an even more fertile ground for the myth, offering players not just a story about Hy-Brasil, but a chance to virtually explore it themselves. The blockbuster franchise Assassin's Creed, known for blending historical fiction with sci-fi conspiracy, has featured the island in its expanded lore. Here, it's often depicted not just as a magical place, but as a location tied to powerful, ancient artifacts or precursor civilizations, tapping into the gamer's desire to uncover hidden secrets and lost history. This interactive element is key. When you, as a player, actively steer your character through the misty shores of a digital Hy-Brasil, the legend ceases to be a passive tale and becomes a personal experience. You're not just hearing about the mystery, you're participating in it, which forges a much deeper and more memorable connection to the myth. Beyond the big-budget productions, the internet has become the ultimate campfire for sharing and reshaping the Hy-Brasil story. Online forums like Reddit and dedicated paranormal message boards see regular surges of interest, where users dissect old maps, share sonar anomalies they claim are evidence, and weave elaborate personal theories about the island's true nature. TikTok and YouTube are filled with short-form documentaries and speculative videos that present the legend with spooky music and compelling visuals, algorithms feeding the mystery to millions of curious viewers worldwide. This digital storytelling is a powerful engine of relevance. It allows the myth to be endlessly remixed, debated, and personalized, with each user adding their own layer of interpretation. A teenager watching an edited video on their phone becomes the latest link in a chain of storytellers that began with Irish Cinche centuries ago. This constant churn of content ensures the legend never fades. It simply adapts, finding new life in the very technologies that have supposedly mapped and explained our entire world. The island's journey into pop culture proves that a story's power isn't diminished by a lack of proof. Sometimes, its very ambiguity is what allows it to thrive, providing a blank canvas onto which every era can project its own fantasies, fears, and sense of wonder. While the mists of myth and the limitations of early science provided fertile ground for the legend of Hy-Brasil to grow, they were not the only forces at work. Deliberate deception also played a significant role in cementing the island's place in the public imagination, adding intricate and often convincing layers of falsehood that made separating fact from fiction a monumental task. Throughout the centuries, a series of clever hoaxes and outright forgeries emerged, each one exploiting the public's deep-seated desire for the legend to be true. Among the most pernicious were expertly crafted forged maps, created long after the island had been officially debunked, which would surface in antiquarian markets. These documents, often artificially aged and bearing the forged signatures of famous cartographers, were designed to fool collectors and historians, providing what appeared to be tangible historical proof of Hy-Brasil's existence. Similarly, fabricated sailor diaries and logs would occasionally come to light, filled with elaborate and thrilling details of landings on the island's shores, encounters with its strange inhabitants, and descriptions of its impossible geography. These forgeries were compelling because they tapped directly into the established folklore, using the familiar language of the myth to lend an air of authenticity to their invented narratives. The 19th century, with the rise of a booming newspaper industry, saw a new and powerful vector for this misinformation. In a highly competitive market where circulation numbers were everything, some editors discovered that sensationalism sold papers. A slow news week could be instantly transformed by a dramatic account of a Hy-Brasil sighting from a so-called reputable captain or a mysterious traveler. These articles were masterclasses in blending just enough plausible detail with outright fantasy, often quoting unnamed sources or citing other, equally dubious publications to create a circular echo chamber of false evidence. The infamous O'Connell family story from the 1880s is a prime example where a series of letters published in an Irish newspaper claimed a family had lived on the island for centuries, describing a utopian society untouched by time. These stories were rarely ever retracted, and their publication in the formal medium of print granted them a credibility that oral folklore lacked, ensuring they were clipped, saved, and cited for decades by true believers. The motive behind these deceptions was rarely just simple mischief. There was often a financial incentive at play. A forged map could be sold for a small fortune to a gullible collector. A sensational newspaper story could boost circulation, selling thousands of extra copies. In some cases, these hoaxes were even used to attract investment for ill-fated expeditions, with con artists convincing wealthy backers to fund a voyage to a paradise they promised was rich with gold and other resources. These schemes preyed upon two powerful human drivers, curiosity and greed. The desire to believe in something wondrous, combined with the lure of potential riches, made even the most critical minds somewhat susceptible to a well-presented fabrication. Understanding this long history of intentional deception is absolutely crucial for anyone trying to unravel the truth of Hy-Brasil. It forces us to apply a layer of critical scrutiny to every historical account, to ask not just what does this say, but who wrote this and why. It reminds us that the trail of evidence is not just fragmented by time, but actively polluted by those who sought to profit from the mystery. This doesn't mean we must dismiss every unusual story out of hand, but rather that we must approach them with a balanced mindset, one that is open to possibility but armed with healthy skepticism. Recognizing the hoaxes allows us to clear away the human-made clutter, giving us a clearer view of the natural phenomena that might actually be at the heart of this enduring enigma. The stretch of ocean west of Ireland, where countless maps once confidently placed the island of Hy-Brasil, is not just any empty quadrant of sea. It is a place where the natural world behaves in strange and dramatic ways, creating a perfect stage for mystery. This region is notorious among mariners for its powerful, unpredictable currents that can pull a ship far off its intended course without the crew even realizing it. Thick, persistent fog banks are a common occurrence, born from the clash of the warm Gulf Stream with the colder waters of the North Atlantic. These fogs don't just reduce visibility, they transform it, creating a disorienting, milky void where the horizon disappears and the senses become unreliable. To this day, sailors in the area sometimes report brief, inexplicable compass deviations, subtle magnetic whispers that hint at the complex geology lurking deep beneath the waves. These aren't supernatural occurrences, They are documented oceanic anomalies that have been challenging navigation for centuries, providing a completely natural and rational explanation for the disorientation that could lead a seasoned captain to believe he had stumbled upon land that wasn't on his charts. One of the most compelling scientific explanations for the modern signals detected in this area involves the seafloor itself. Deep beneath the sediment lies a vast reservoir of methane hydrate, a frozen, ice-like mixture of water and natural gas that forms under immense pressure and cold temperatures. When this stable structure is disrupted by a minor tectonic shift, a landslide, or even a gradual change in water temperature, the methane can be released in a sudden, violent outburst. This isn't a gentle stream of bubbles. It's a powerful jet of gas erupting from the seabed with enough force to disturb the water column above. To sophisticated sonar equipment on a passing ship or research vessel, this explosive release of pressurized gas can create a sharp, distinct acoustic signature, a loud, low-frequency ping that is virtually indistinguishable from the active sonar used by submarines. For a crew unaware of the geological activity below, detecting such a signal from an area supposed to be empty ocean is profoundly puzzling, instantly resurrecting the old tales of a mysterious signaling island. Beyond sound, this same process can create startling visual effects. A large-scale methane release churns the water, creating a temporary area of bubbling, frothing sea that can look markedly different from the surrounding ocean. From a distance and through the region's famous haze, this turbulent patch could be misinterpreted as breaking waves on a hidden shoreline or a strange, shifting landmass. When you combine these auditory and visual phenomena, the unexplained pings on a sonar screen and the odd, churning water seen through a fog bank, you have all the ingredients for a modern-day sighting. The legend provides the framework for interpretation. The natural world provides the ambiguous data. The human brain, ever eager to find patterns and meaning, effortlessly connects the two, transforming a complex geological process into a signal from a lost world. This perspective doesn't rob the mystery of its magic. It simply relocates the wonder from the realm of fantasy to the incredible reality of our own planet. The fact that the slow digestion of organic matter on the ocean floor or the shifting of continental plates can produce effects mysterious enough to sustain a legend for hundreds of years is, in its own way, more astonishing than any myth. It demonstrates the raw, untamed power of the natural world to inspire awe and narrative. By grounding the Hy-Brasil legend in these observable, albeit extraordinary, environmental factors, we don't dismiss the intrigue, we deepen it. We exchange a simple ghost story for a far more complex and fascinating dialogue between human perception and the planet's hidden mechanics. A dialogue that has compelled curious minds for generations to mount real expeditions and venture into that foggy expanse in search of answers. The human yearning to find what is lost has driven countless souls into the unknown, and the quest for Hy-Brasil is a perfect testament to this relentless spirit of exploration. Among the most documented of these quests was the 1872 expedition led by the determined Captain James T. MacDonald, setting sail from Ireland with a crew fueled by equal parts hope and local legend. MacDonald was convinced that systematic search patterns, combined with favorable weather conditions, would finally reveal the island's elusive shores. His voyage was not a haphazard adventure. It was a methodical, well-funded effort backed by investors who believed in the potential glory and riches of such a discovery. For weeks, his ship combed the empty Atlantic, its crew scanning the horizon for any break in the monotony of waves. They encountered the region's infamous fogs and challenging seas, but each time the mist cleared, there was only the boundless ocean. The expedition returned to port not with tales of gold or enchanted isles, but with logs filled with navigational data and profound disappointment. Yet, in a fascinating twist, this very failure only served to enrich the legend. The fact that a serious, well-equipped mission could find nothing where an island was supposed to be added a new layer of mystique. It transformed Hy-Brasil from a mere cartographic error into something far more intriguing, a mystery that defied rational pursuit, a prize that would not be so easily won. This pattern of passionate pursuit ending in frustration became a defining theme of the Hy-Brasil story. MacDonald's 19th century voyage was far from the last. Throughout the 20th century, as technology advanced, so did the methods of the seekers. The 1970s and 80s saw a new wave of interest, often spearheaded by wealthy private enthusiasts and amateur archaeological societies armed with the latest depth sounders and side-scan sonar. These were not treasure hunters in the classic sense, but individuals captivated by the puzzle itself, drawn by the romantic notion of solving a centuries-old enigma. They would charter vessels and spend small fortunes scanning the seabed, their high-tech screens painting detailed images of the underwater landscape below. Time and again, they would identify intriguing anomalies, a curious mound, an unusually sharp ridge, only for closer inspection or subsequent surveys to reveal nothing more than a natural rock formation, a geological quirk that briefly ignited hope before dashing it. These modern quests, though ultimately as fruitless as MacDonald's, highlight a crucial evolution in the search. The goal shifted from expecting to find an island above the waves to hoping to find evidence of one below them, to uncover the sunken ruins that would prove the old stories were based on a long-lost truth. The stories of these expeditions, both historic and modern, have themselves become woven into the fabric of the Hy-Brasil myth. Each failed voyage adds another chapter to the saga, another example of human perseverance in the face of the inexplicable. They embody a spirit that is less about greed and more about the pure, unadulterated drive for discovery, the same drive that pushed explorers to the poles and astronauts to the moon. We celebrate these efforts not for their results but for their audacity. They represent our refusal to accept that every corner of our world is known, that every story has been fully explained. This enduring history of search and discovery, spanning from sail to sonar, is a powerful engine that keeps the legend alive. It proves that a mystery is often sustained not by its answers, but by the compelling human stories of those who dedicate themselves to the search. To truly understand the power a name can hold, we must listen to the echoes of the old language. The name Hy-Brasil is not a random collection of sounds. It is a direct portal to a much older world, a whispered secret from the depths of Irish mythology. Its true origin lies in the Irish Hy-Brasil, which translates poetically to the island of Brazil. This immediately anchors the legend not to a random rock in the ocean, but to a specific, powerful figure from a pre-Christian belief system. In the rich tapestry of Celtic lore, Brazil, or Bres, was a name associated with the high kingship of the mythical Tuatha De Danann, the god-like people who are said to have ruled Ireland before the arrival of humans. These figures were not mere mortals. They represented sovereignty, abundance, and a direct connection to the land itself. By naming the island after such a figure, the ancient storytellers were imbuing it with an innate nobility and otherworldly power from the very beginning. It wasn't just an island, it was the island of the High King, a domain worthy of a deity, a place intrinsically linked to concepts of rightful rule, immense wealth, and divine magic. This etymological root is the master key that unlocks the island's original character. It explains why the legends never described Hy-Brasil as a simple, barren outcrop. It was always a place of impossible beauty and eternal youth, a realm of plenty that echoed the Celtic ideal of the otherworld, a parallel dimension of perfection that existed just beyond the veil of our own. The name itself was a promise and a warning. It promised a paradise untouched by sorrow or decay, a land where time held no sway, but it also warned that this was not a place for ordinary men. It was a sacred, enchanted ground, protected by its very nature and accessible only to the worthy or the chosen, perhaps only on certain days when the barrier between worlds grew thin. This deep connection to a pre-Christian past is crucial. It shows that the legend is far older than the medieval maps that made it famous. It is a survival from an oral tradition that stretched back into the mists of time, a fragment of a pagan worldview that managed to persist long after new religions had taken hold. The journey of the name itself is a story of cultural migration and transformation. As the tale of the island traveled beyond the shores of Ireland, carried by sailors and traders, the name encountered new tongues and new alphabets. Portuguese cartographers, some of the most skilled in Europe during the Age of Discovery, heard the name and began to render it on their charts. Their language softened the Celtic sounds, and the Hy-Brasil gradually morphed into Brasil. Later, English mapmakers adopted this spelling, further cementing it in the geographical lexicon of the era. This linguistic evolution created a fascinating and entirely coincidental historical puzzle. The name Brasil for the Phantom Isle predates the naming of the South American country by centuries. When Portuguese explorers landed in South America and found a land rich with a valuable red dye wood, they called the territory Terra do Brasil, land of the red embers, after the pau-brasil tree. The phonetic similarity between the two names is a pure accident of history, a homophonic convergence that has confused people ever since. One name comes from a Celtic god king of the otherworld, the other from a tree whose wood glows like a coal. This coincidence, however, has only added to the enduring mystique and cross-cultural confusion surrounding the lost island. Pulling back to see this entire linguistic journey reveals something profound about how myths live and breathe. A story is not a static thing. As it moves from one culture to another, from the spoken word to the printed page, it adapts. Its details shift to fit new understandings, its name changes to suit new pronunciations, but its core, its essential emotional truth, persists. The name Hy-Brasil is a palimpsest, a document written over multiple times. Beneath the Portuguese and English spelling, you can still faintly see the original Irish, and beneath that, the shadowy figure of Brasil himself, a king of a world that exists only in story. This demonstrates that language is not just a tool for labeling the world. It is the very vessel that carries our dreams, our fears, and our most enduring mysteries across the generations, ensuring that even an island that vanished from the map continues to hold a firm place in the imagination. Long before the written word could fix a story to a page, the legend of Hy-Brasil lived and breathed in the spoken word, carried on the breath of storytellers who were the living libraries of their communities. In the Gaelic-speaking regions of Ireland and Scotland, these custodians of culture were known as saints, revered figures who held the entire history, genealogy, and mythology of their people in their memory. Around the flickering light of a turf fire, on long winter nights, the saints, I would weave the tale of the mysterious island, their voice rising and falling with the rhythm of the waves they described. They spoke of a place that was not merely lost, but actively hidden, a land that would materialize from a bank of silver mist, its shores visible only to those with pure intention or at a time of celestial significance, before dissolving back into the ocean's embrace as if it were a dream. This oral tradition was not a simple recitation. It was a performance, an act of communal remembering where the story was shaped by the teller's artistry and the audience's reaction. ensuring that with each telling, the legend was subtly remade, keeping it vibrantly alive and immediately relevant to the people who listened. These stories were far more than entertainment. They were a primary vehicle for transmitting the core values, fears, and wisdom of the culture. Woven into the enchanting descriptions of Hy-Brasil's eternal youth and beauty were potent moral lessons that served as societal guide rails. A common thread in these narratives was a stern warning against the perils of greed and the dangers of seeking knowledge or wealth that was not rightfully yours. Tales were told of fishermen who, upon glimpsing the island, were overcome with a desire to claim its treasures, only to return to their villages to find that decades had passed and they were now strangers in their own homes. This was a powerful metaphor for the disruptive force of avarice, teaching that the obsessive pursuit of wealth could cost a person everything they truly held dear: their family, their community, and their place in the world. Other stories framed the island as a test of character, where only those who were humble, generous, and respectful of the old ways would be granted a peaceful sojourn. Those with pride or malice in their hearts would be met with misfortune or madness. In this way, the myth of Hy-Brasil functioned as a kind of ancient, narrative-based ethics, using the thrill of a fantastic adventure to impart crucial lessons about how to live a good life. The incredible flexibility of the oral tradition is what allowed this specific legend to endure for centuries, adapting to the changing tides of history without losing its essential power. As new influences arrived on those shores, from the spread of Christianity to the incursions of foreign powers, the storytellers skillfully incorporated these elements into the existing framework of the myth. The island's otherworldly inhabitants, once the pagan Tuatha De Danann, might be gently reframed as pious Christian hermits or angels in later tellings, allowing the story to survive within a new religious orthodoxy. Local landmarks, recent historical events, or the specific concerns of a village could be folded into the narrative, making each performance feel uniquely tailored to its time and place. This process of adaptation ensured that Hy-Brasil never became a stale, fossilized relic of the past. It was a living, evolving story, constantly being refreshed to reflect the current anxieties and hopes of the community, whether that was a fear of the changing social order, a longing for a simpler time, or a fascination with the vast, unexplored ocean. Understanding this folkloric mechanism completely transforms our perception of Hy-Brasil. It moves the discussion beyond a simple debate over its geographic existence. The island becomes something far richer, a cultural artifact, a narrative tool that held a mirror to the society that nurtured it. The values it championed, the taboos it warned against, and the wonders it described tell us more about the people of Ireland and Scotland than they do about the Atlantic Ocean. The story's persistence reveals a deep human need to make sense of the unknown, to place a framework of meaning around the frightening and the inexplicable. The ocean was a vast, dangerous, and unpredictable force. By creating a story about a magical island that controlled its own visibility, they were, in a way, asserting a sense of order and enchantment over the terrifying chaos of the natural world. This recognition that myths are a form of living history, a record of a people's inner world, is the key that unlocks the true, enduring power of the Hy-Brasil legend, setting the stage to see how this powerful story, born in the oral tradition, went on to directly influence the very practical, real-world endeavors of navigation and exploration. The allure of Hy-Brasil did more than just spark campfire stories. It actively steered the course of ships and shaped the very maps of the age of exploration. Imagine a 15th-century Portuguese caravel or a Bristol merchant vessel, its crew weary from weeks at sea, navigating by the stars and the fragile hope of a promised land. For these mariners, the legend was not a fantasy. It was a potential destination, a tangible goal that justified the immense risks of venturing into the unknown Atlantic. Captains, armed with charts that depicted the circular island west of Ireland, would sometimes deliberately alter their intended routes, adding days or even weeks to their journeys to sail through its purported coordinates. This was no minor detour. It was a calculated gamble fueled by the promise of immense wealth, eternal youth, or simply the immortal fame that would come from solving one of the ocean's greatest mysteries. These quests were expensive and dangerous undertakings, funded by investors and monarchs who were just as captivated by the myth as the sailors themselves, proving that a powerful story could literally change a ship's heading and drain a kingdom's treasury. This pursuit of a phantom had profound and often unintended consequences for the history of discovery. In some remarkable cases, the search for a myth led directly to the confirmation of reality. The most famous example involves the Venetian explorer John Cabot. While his primary mission was to find a northern route to Asia, his voyages in the late 1490s were deeply influenced by the reports and maps pointing to Hy-Brasil. Sailing under the commission of King Henry VII of England, Cabot's path took him across the North Atlantic, and though he certainly didn't find an enchanted isle, he did make landfall on the coast of Newfoundland. This monumental encounter with the North American continent, while not his sole objective, was arguably encouraged by the broader cultural impulse to explore the Western Ocean, an impulse that Hy-Brasil helped to fuel. The myth acted as a catalyst, providing an additional, compelling reason for explorers to push beyond the boundaries of the known world. Their failure to find the specific island they sought was often overshadowed by the accidental discovery of new fishing grounds, unexpected currents, or even entirely new lands, demonstrating how the line between myth and discovery is often wonderfully and productively blurred. Of course, not all consequences were so fortunate. For every accidental breakthrough, there were countless mishaps and tragedies born from this obsession. Ships lured off safe and established trade routes by the siren song of Hy-Brasil could find themselves hopelessly lost in the open ocean, their supplies dwindling as they searched in vain for an island that existed only on paper and in legend. They faced the notorious fogs and sudden storms of the North Atlantic without the benefit of accurate charts, risking shipwreck on uncharted rocks or real, non-mythical coastlines they encountered unexpectedly. The psychological toll was equally heavy. Crews, promised riches and glory, could mutiny when their hopes were dashed by the endless empty horizon. The economic impact was also significant. Sponsors and backers saw their investments vanish into the sea with nothing to show for it, a sobering reminder that the power of myth could lead to very real financial ruin. These failures, however, also served a purpose. Each unsuccessful voyage provided new navigational data about what wasn't there, slowly helping cartographers refine their maps and narrow down the possibilities, gradually shrinking the space where fantasy could reside and expanding the domain of confirmed fact. This historical dynamic reveals a profound truth about human ambition. Our endeavors are rarely driven by cold, hard facts alone. They are powered by stories, by dreams, and by the irresistible allure of the unknown. The legend of Hy-Brasil was a potent engine of exploration, providing a narrative that was compelling enough to motivate men to risk their lives and fortunes. It underscores the idea that discovery is not a purely rational process. It is a messy, human affair, driven as much by desire and imagination as by logic and evidence. The myth gave explorers a reason to look beyond the horizon, and in doing so, it helped redraw the map of the world, not by adding a false island, but by providing the motivation to find true ones. This tangible impact on the course of human history elevates Hy-Brasil from a simple folktale to a genuine force in the story of our planet's exploration, a testament to the incredible power of a story to change the world in ways its original tellers could never have imagined. For those who find rational explanations too limiting, the legend of Hy-Brasil opens a doorway to far more extraordinary possibilities. Beyond the realms of geology and mistaken identity lies a vibrant tapestry of esoteric interpretation, where the island transforms from a physical place into a metaphysical concept. In these mystical circles, Hy-Brasil is not thought of as a sunken landmass but as a spiritual vortex or an interdimensional portal, a thin place where the veil between our world and other realms becomes permeable. This idea finds powerful roots in its original Celtic mythology, where it was explicitly described as an otherworld, a parallel dimension of existence accessible only through magic or spiritual grace. Modern New Age beliefs have eagerly adopted and expanded this notion, framing the island not as a location on a map, but as a state of consciousness or a gateway to higher dimensions of understanding and being. This perspective shifts the entire search from an external, physical endeavor to an internal, spiritual one, suggesting that Hy-Brasil can only be found not by sailing the ocean, but by journeying within. This line of thinking often branches into even more speculative territory, with some theorists proposing Hy-Brasil as a potential site for an ancient, advanced civilization that predates recorded history. Drawing loose comparisons to Atlantis or Lemuria, these narratives suggest the island was home to a people with technology or wisdom far surpassing our own, who either destroyed themselves or consciously withdrew from our dimension, leaving behind only echoes of their presence. An even more fringe interpretation posits a connection to extraterrestrial activity, viewing the persistent signals and strange sightings as evidence of an underwater alien base or a crashed spacecraft that continues to transmit data. These claims, while captivating to a certain audience, operate entirely outside the boundaries of empirical science. They are not supported by archaeological evidence or any verifiable data, residing firmly in the domain of belief and speculation rather than testable hypothesis. What unites these diverse and creative interpretations is a profound human desire to find deeper, more meaningful patterns in the unknown. The straightforward story of a cartographic error or a drowned coastline can feel unsatisfyingly mundane to some. The esoteric narrative offers a grander, more enchanting explanation that connects the mystery of Hy-Brasil to universal themes of consciousness, lost history, and humanity's place in a vast, multidimensional cosmos. It transforms the island from a historical footnote into a powerful symbol of everything we have yet to understand. This longing is a fundamental part of our psychology. We are wired to seek significance, and a mysterious blank spot on the map is the perfect canvas upon which to project our deepest hopes, fears, and questions about the nature of reality itself. While these theories may lack scientific credibility, they are invaluable for what they reveal about the cultural function of myth. They demonstrate that a powerful legend is never just one thing. It is a living story that can be endlessly adapted to serve the needs and beliefs of different groups across time. The same tale that once taught moral lessons to Irish villagers can now inspire meditations on consciousness for modern spiritual seekers. This multifaceted nature is the true power of the enigma. It allows Hy-Brasil to be simultaneously a geological possibility, a historical mistake, a cultural artifact, and a spiritual metaphor, proving that the most enduring mysteries are those that are rich enough to hold multiple, contradictory truths at once. This incredible flexibility ensures the legend's survival, providing a source of wonder and inspiration that is immune to debunking, because its true location was never in the ocean, but in the limitless landscape of the human imagination. The shimmering promise of Hy-Brasil was never just a subject for dreamers and poets. It possessed a potent, tangible allure that drew the attention of kings, merchants, and speculators who saw not an enchanted isle, but a potential asset waiting to be claimed. Throughout the 17th and 18th centuries, as the legend flourished on maps and in sailors' taverns, numerous economic ventures were launched with the explicit goal of locating the island and harvesting its fabled riches. Wealthy investors, captivated by tales of streets paved with gold and forests of silver trees, financed expeditions, viewing the endeavor not as a quixotic quest but as a high-risk, high-reward commercial enterprise. These voyages were the equivalent of today's speculative startup investments, fueled by a compelling narrative and the intoxicating possibility of unimaginable returns. The expeditions themselves became small economic engines requiring ships, crews, supplies, and equipment, all funded by capital eager to tap into the island's legendary wealth. Of course, every single one of these ventures returned empty-handed, their financial backers facing total loss, a stark reminder that a story, no matter how seductive, cannot conjure material wealth from an empty expanse of ocean. This cycle of investment and failure demonstrates the powerful economic force of myth, showing how a compelling narrative can mobilize real capital and drive tangible, albeit futile, human enterprise. Politically, the story of Hy-Brasil was skillfully woven into the fabric of Irish cultural identity, becoming a soft power tool long before the term was ever coined. During periods of foreign domination and cultural suppression, the legend served as a subtle but potent form of nationalist resistance. It was an exclusively Irish myth, a piece of otherworldly real estate that belonged to the Gaelic imagination and couldn't be claimed or controlled by any foreign crown. Celebrating Hy-Brasil became a way to celebrate a distinct pre-colonial Irish heritage, a hidden kingdom of noble high kings and eternal beauty that existed conceptually beyond the reach of English rule. The island evolved into a symbol of a pure, unconquered Ireland, a spiritual homeland that persisted in the collective psyche even as the physical land faced political and social challenges. Folklore and song kept this idea alive, ensuring that the myth was passed down not just as a fairy tale, but as an emblem of cultural resilience and a reminder of a noble, sovereign past. In this sense, Hy-Brasil functioned as a political symbol, a narrative anchor for a national identity that refused to be erased. In our modern era, the legend occasionally surfaces in surprisingly practical debates, particularly those concerning maritime law and resource rights. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea governs how nations claim exclusive economic zones, typically extending 200 nautical miles from a country's coastline. While the rules are clear that submerged features don't count, the persistent legend of a sunken landmass in the Atlantic occasionally leads to fanciful, though largely theoretical, discussions in certain circles. Could evidence of a once-inhabited Hy-Brasil, however faint, ever be used to justify an extended claim on the resource-rich seabed? While no government would ever seriously pursue a claim based on a myth, the fact that the idea even enters conversation highlights the enduring interplay between story and sovereignty. It shows how deeply ingrained narratives can subtly influence the way we think about territory and ownership, even in the highly legalistic 21st century. These economic and political dimensions peel back a fascinating layer of the Hy-Brasil enigma, moving it beyond pure folklore and into the complex arena of human ambition and power. The story was never inert. It was an active force that motivated investment, shaped cultural identity, and even lightly brushed against international law. This reveals a fundamental truth about powerful myths. They are never content to remain mere stories. They inevitably escape the pages of books to walk into the boardrooms, government chambers, and cultural debates of the real world, proving that the most enduring legends are those that find a way to matter, in both tangible and intangible ways, to the people who keep them alive. Ironically, the very force that may have drowned Hy-Brasil in the first place is now fueling its most compelling modern revival. As climate change steadily raises global sea levels, our collective attention is turning toward the world's coastlines with a new sense of urgency and loss. This isn't just about future threats, it's about watching our own history begin to vanish before our eyes. Ancient port cities, Neolithic settlements, and vast landscapes that were once home to our ancestors are now slipping beneath the waves, becoming the sunken worlds of tomorrow. In this powerful and sobering context, the legend of Hy-Brasil has found a profound new resonance. It is no longer merely a curious folktale, but has been transformed into a potent symbol for all lands lost to the ocean, a poetic and haunting emblem of environmental change itself. The story captures the deep, melancholic truth that our planet's geography is not permanent, that the ground beneath our feet can be reclaimed by the sea, a reality we are now confronting on a global scale. This shift in perspective has sparked a fascinating new line of inquiry among marine archaeologists and geologists. Some researchers are beginning to wonder if the same climate processes that are currently submerging our coastlines could, in a strange twist, actually help solve ancient mysteries like Hy-Brasil. As powerful storms, intensified by a warming climate, erode coastlines and shift massive amounts of seabed sediment, they can sometimes expose features that have been hidden for millennia. A severe storm might scour away a layer of sand to reveal the remnants of a petrified forest or the outlines of a submerged river valley that hadn't been visible before. Furthermore, the technological drive to better understand and map rising sea levels has led to unprecedented advancements in underwater surveying. The same high-resolution sonar and LiDAR technology used to model future flood zones is being applied to scan the seabed with incredible detail, hunting for the archaeological fingerprints of past landscapes. While the primary goal is scientific, these efforts could almost incidentally stumble upon evidence that sheds light on legendary places, turning a myth into a measurable datum point in our study of climate history. This connection elevates the legend from a historical footnote to a narrative lens through which we can examine urgent contemporary issues. Hy-Brasil becomes a story about heritage preservation, reminding us that climate change isn't just an environmental crisis but a cultural one, threatening to erase countless physical links to our past. It also serves as a powerful metaphor for resilience and memory. Just as the story of the island refused to die even after it was erased from maps, our own stories and histories must be preserved and passed down, even as the physical evidence disappears. This modern reinterpretation ensures the myth remains dynamically relevant. It's discussed not just in history documentaries but in conversations about coastal erosion, in university courses on climate anthropology, and in artistic works that grapple with themes of loss and adaptation. The legend is being retooled for the 21st century, providing a human-scale story through which we can process the vast, often abstract, and overwhelming reality of planetary change. Ultimately, this rekindled interest, fueled by our changing climate, demonstrates the incredible adaptability of a powerful story. Hy-Brasil has been successfully rebranded. It has evolved from a navigational era to a Celtic otherworld, from a cartographic ghost to a symbol of ecological awareness. Its ability to find new meaning in the face of modern anxieties is a testament to its enduring power. The mystery persists not because we lack answers, but because the questions it asks have become more profound and more personal than ever. We are no longer just asking, was there an island? We are now asking, what are we losing to the sea, and what will we do to remember it? This deep, emotional connection to a very current fear ensures the Phantom Isle remains vibrantly alive in the public consciousness, a timeless legend retold for a new age of uncertainty. Perhaps the most compelling thread in the entire tapestry of the Hy-Brasil legend is not found on any ancient map, but in the personal, often haunting, testimonies of those who claim to have brushed against its mystery. These are not the grandiose claims of explorers seeking fame or funding, but the quiet, bewildered accounts of ordinary people who went to sea and encountered something they could not explain. For generations, local fishermen along Ireland's western coast have swapped stories of peculiar glows on the horizon, not like the familiar beacon of a lighthouse or the slow dance of the aurora, but a soft, pulsing luminescence that seemed to emanate from the water itself, appearing and vanishing with an intelligence that felt anything but natural. They speak of sudden, windless fogs that descend not like weather, but like a curtain being drawn, isolating their boats in a silent, milky world where time and direction lose all meaning, only to lift just as abruptly, leaving nothing but empty ocean behind. These men know these waters intimately. They can read the currents and the sky with an innate skill passed down through families. When they speak of something that feels out of place, their words carry a weight that the most detailed scientific report often lacks, because they are describing a violation of their understood reality. In more recent times, these tales of visual wonders have been joined by a new kind of story, one told not in words but in data. Modern merchant mariners and yacht captains, equipped with sophisticated onboard electronics, have occasionally reported baffling instrument readings while traversing the North Atlantic. The most common is the unexplained sonar ping, a sharp, clear return on the depth sounder that indicates a large, solid object directly below, in waters that are charted as being thousands of feet deep. The initial reaction is often to assume a school of fish or a thermal layer, but the signature is wrong. It reads as static, unmoving, and impossibly substantial. Then, as quickly as it appears, it's gone, the screen returning to a flat, empty blue. Others have logged brief, erratic bursts on radio bands, signals that crackle with an odd modulation, devoid of any identifiable language or code, seeming to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. For a crew relying on this technology for safety, these anomalies are deeply unsettling. They are not speaking of ghosts or magic. They are reporting a glitch in the cold, hard logic of their machinery, a moment where their trusted instruments tell them something that the rest of the known world insists is impossible. The emotional core of these encounters, whether from a century ago or last year, is rarely one of excitement or adventure. The overwhelming sensation described is one of profound disorientation, a deep-seated awe that quickly curdles into a primal fear. It's the feeling of being a momentary witness to something vast and unknowable, a crack in the facade of the everyday world that reveals a deeper, stranger reality lurking just beneath. This emotional fingerprint is remarkably consistent across the decades, connecting the fisherman in his wooden trawler to the container ship captain on his steel bridge. It's this shared human experience that chilled down the spine, the quickened heartbeat, the feeling of being small in the face of a great mystery, that forms the true, unbreakable backbone of the Hy-Brasil legend. Science can offer theories about mirages and methane vents, and it may well be right, but it cannot so easily dismiss the visceral, personal impact of these moments. They become personal landmarks in a person's life, stories told and retold, not as proof for debate, but as a way to process an experience that fundamentally altered their perception of what is possible. While a single story can be dismissed as a hallucination or a tall tale, the collective weight of these anecdotes, spanning centuries and told by individuals with no connection to each other, creates a powerful echo chamber that continually reinforces the myth. Each new account shared in a dockside pub or on an online forum adds another brick to an invisible wall of folklore. It doesn't matter that the fisherman's strange light can be explained by bioluminescent plankton stirred up by a unique current, or that the sailor's sonar ghost was likely a release of methane gas. What matters is that the experience happened. It was filed away under the heading of "that strange thing near the Hy-Brasil coordinates," and the story was passed on. This process of collective storytelling is how myths breathe and grow, transforming isolated incidents into a cohesive narrative that belongs to everyone. It is a self-sustaining cycle. The legend inspires people to watch for anomalies, and any anomaly witnessed is then absorbed into the legend, making it stronger and more enticing for the next potential witness. This personal dimension is the lifeblood of the mystery, ensuring that long after the maps were corrected and the scientific papers published, the human fascination with what might be out there in the mist continues to pulse as strongly as any phantom signal. For every captivating legend that captures our imagination, there exists an equally important chorus of voices urging caution and critical thought. The story of Hy-Brasil is no exception, and a thorough examination demands we listen to the skeptics and scientists who have long worked to separate compelling fiction from verifiable fact. This community of critical thinkers doesn't seek to spoil the fun. Rather, they aim to anchor the discussion in the bedrock of reality, offering rational explanations for the phenomena that have fueled the mystery for centuries. Their primary tool is Occam's razor, the principle that the simplest explanation is often the correct one, and when applied to Hy-Brasil, it slices through the layers of myth to reveal a series of understandable, if less romantic, truths. They point out that the human mind, particularly when faced with the vast and terrifying emptiness of the open ocean, is a notoriously unreliable witness, prone to seeing patterns and shapes where none exist. A distant bank of clouds on the horizon, a peculiar rock formation glimpsed through a storm, or a common optical illusion could easily be misinterpreted by an exhausted, hopeful crew as the enchanted island they were primed to discover. These misidentifications weren't lies, they were honest errors born from a combination of expectation, limited technology, and the powerful desire to find something extraordinary. Historical analysis provides a devastatingly effective counter-narrative to the legend. When experts meticulously trace the provenance of the most famous Hy-Brasil accounts, a telling pattern emerges. The stories invariably surface in communities where the Celtic myths were already deeply ingrained in the local culture. The tales told by sailors like John Nisbet didn't appear in a vacuum. They were crafted by men who had grown up hearing the folklore of the otherworld from their grandparents. It's far more plausible that these sailors, whether consciously or not, embellished their voyages with elements from these well-known stories, perhaps to gain notoriety, secure funding for another journey, or simply to be the center of attention in a dockside tavern. Furthermore, the timeline of the island's appearance on maps reveals its mythical nature. It was charted most prominently during the early ages of exploration, when cartographers had no choice but to fill blank spaces with speculative lands based on rumor and hearsay. As navigational technology improved and those blank spaces were filled with accurate data, Hy-Brasil was inevitably erased. This wasn't a conspiracy to hide the truth. It was the natural evolution of knowledge, a process of correcting the record as better information became available. The work of debunking is not about cynically destroying wonder. Its true value lies in strengthening our understanding of the world by encouraging rigorous critical thinking. It teaches us to question sources, to demand evidence, and to understand the difference between an anecdote and proof. This skeptical framework allows us to appreciate the Hy-Brasil legend for what it truly is, a magnificent cultural artifact, a testament to the power of storytelling and the human need for mystery. We can admire its beauty and its enduring place in art and literature without feeling the need to believe it literally exists on a map. This perspective prevents the charming mystery from overshadowing genuine historical and scientific inquiry, ensuring that our pursuit of knowledge remains grounded. Yet, in a fascinating paradox, the very act of debunking can never fully extinguish the allure. The human imagination possesses a stubborn immunity to pure logic. The unanswered question, the unexplained blip on a sonar screen, the sliver of doubt, these are the fuels that keep the legend's engine running. We are drawn to the possibility, however faint, that the rational explanations might be missing something, that there might be one more secret waiting in the deep. This enduring tension between what we can prove and what we can dream is what gives the story its eternal life, proving that some mysteries are most powerful not when they are solved, but when they are perpetually almost within our grasp. The quest for Hy-Brasil is far from over. In fact, it has entered one of its most dynamic and fascinating chapters, driven not by official institutions, but by a global community of digital detectives and passionate amateurs. Today, the search has migrated online, where forums, social media groups, and collaborative websites buzz with activity. Enthusiasts from all walks of life are now using powerful digital tools that were once the exclusive domain of professional scientists. They are scouring high-resolution satellite imagery from platforms like Google Earth, pixel by pixel, searching for any anomalous shadow or shape in the vast blue expanse of the North Atlantic. Others are employing sophisticated software to digitally cross-reference and overlay centuries of historical maps, analyzing the subtle shifts in Hy-Brasil's charted position to see if a pattern emerges that might point to a real geological feature or a common navigational error. This crowdsourced investigation represents a monumental shift in how we approach historical mysteries, turning what was once a solitary pursuit into a worldwide, collaborative effort where a breakthrough could come from a curious individual thousands of miles from the Irish coast. This groundswell of public interest is beautifully complemented by breathtaking advancements in professional marine archaeology and deep-sea exploration technology. The development of autonomous underwater vehicles, or OV, has been a game-changer. These sophisticated robotic drones can now plunge to depths that were once unreachable, gliding silently through the crushing darkness for days on end, their high-definition sonar systems mapping the seabed with centimeter-level precision. Meanwhile, synthetic aperture sonar can now create startlingly clear, photograph-like images of objects on the ocean floor, capable of distinguishing between a natural rock formation and a man-made artifact. The potential for a discovery is greater than it has ever been in human history. It is entirely plausible that a routine survey for a new submarine cable or a scientific study of deep-sea ecosystems could one day stumble upon something unexpected. A concentration of strangely shaped stones, the outline of a sunken river valley that doesn't match current models, or even something more definitive. Such a discovery wouldn't just solve a mystery, it would rewrite a page of history, proving that some legends are woven from the threads of forgotten truth. Yet, even if the most advanced technology one day provides a conclusive answer, perhaps proving the island was a mirage or confirming it as a sunken fragment of the Celtic shelf, the legend of Hy-Brasil will undoubtedly persist. Its power has long since transcended its physical reality. The island has become a permanent fixture in our cultural imagination, a symbol that represents something much larger than itself, the eternal human yearning for the unknown. It serves as a crucial counterbalance in our modern, hyper-documented world, a romantic reminder that despite our satellites and sensors, the ocean still holds secrets and that not every story has a tidy ending. This enduring appeal ensures that Hy-Brasil will continue to inspire artists, writers, and dreamers, evolving from a geographic question into a timeless metaphor for exploration, wonder, and the mysteries that lie just beyond the edge of our understanding. The future of this enigma lies not in its resolution, but in its perpetual ability to captivate us, a perfect blend of ancient folklore and our endless, innovative drive to seek answers. The story of Hy-Brasil is far more than a curious footnote in maritime history. It is a powerful testament to the profound role that myths play in the human experience. These enduring narratives are not mere falsehoods or simple stories for children. They are the foundational bedrock upon which cultures build their understanding of the world, the past, and themselves. Myths like that of the vanishing island provide a vital framework for societies to process the vast and often terrifying unknown. Before the age of science could offer explanations for strange weather patterns, magnetic anomalies, or the discovery of ancient tree stumps on a beach, human communities crafted stories. These tales transformed bewildering natural phenomena into manageable narratives, placing a layer of meaning and enchantment over a chaotic and unpredictable world. A sudden bank of fog wasn't just a meteorological event. It was the veil surrounding Hy-Brasil, hiding its secrets from the unworthy. This process of myth-making is a fundamental human impulse, a way to impose order, find purpose, and connect the dots of our existence in a universe that doesn't always provide clear answers. Beyond explaining the unexplainable, myths are the vessels of our collective memory and identity. For centuries, the legend of Hy-Brasil was kept alive not in history books, but in the oral traditions of Irish and Scottish communities. The Sinchai, the storyteller, was a custodian of culture, passing down the tale around hearths, ensuring that the values, fears, and wisdom of their people were transmitted to the next generation. Woven into the enchanting description of the island were crucial moral lessons about the dangers of greed, the importance of humility, and the respect for forces greater than oneself. This story, and thousands like it from every corner of the globe, function as a living, breathing archive. They preserve a culture's unique voice, its ethical codes, and its historical perspective long after official records have turned to dust. They remind us who we are and where we came from, creating a continuous thread of identity that stretches back through the centuries, offering a sense of belonging and continuity in an ever-changing world. Perhaps most beautifully, myths are the engine of human creativity and discovery. The tantalizing possibility of Hy-Brasil didn't just inspire poets like Yeats, it literally set ships sailing into the unknown. The legend acted as a catalyst, fueling the age of exploration and encouraging navigators to venture beyond the edges of their maps in search of something wondrous. While they may not have found an enchanted isle, their quests, driven by myth, led to the accidental discovery of real lands and new understandings of the ocean. This same imaginative spark is what drives scientific inquiry and artistic expression today. The desire to solve a mystery, to confirm a legend, or simply to see what's over the horizon is a direct descendant of that ancient, myth-fueled curiosity. It encourages us to ask, what if, and to imagine possibilities beyond our current reality, pushing the boundaries of both art and science. Appreciating the value of a myth does not require a literal belief in its truth. We don't need to think Hy-Brasil actually existed to be captivated by its story, and to understand the deeper human truths it conveys about loss, wonder, and the relentless pursuit of knowledge. Recognizing this allows us to embrace these narratives not as historical records to be debunked, but as invaluable cultural artifacts that enrich our lives, fuel our imaginations, and connect us to the timeless and universal aspects of what it means to be human. Our journey to unravel the mystery of Hy-Brasil has taken us across centuries and disciplines, from the fading ink of medieval maps to the crisp digital readouts of modern sonar. We've stood with Celtic storytellers by the fire, sailed with hopeful explorers into the Atlantic fog, and peered over the shoulders of cartographers as they slowly, reluctantly, erased an island from the world. We've listened to the whispers of geology and the crackle of unexplained signals, finding that the line between a natural phenomenon and a magical story is often wonderfully thin. This tapestry we've explored, woven with threads of myth, history, science, and sheer human wonder, reveals something far more significant than the fate of any single piece of land. It illuminates the very nature of our relationship with the unknown. Hy-Brasil, in its enduring absence, has become more than a place. It is a powerful symbol of the eternal human quest, a blank space on the map that we have filled not with rock and soil, but with our deepest hopes, our most captivating stories, and our insatiable need to believe that wonder still has a place in our world. The most compelling conclusion we can draw is not about the island's existence, but about the purpose of the mystery itself. Some enigmas are not puzzles to be solved so much as they are catalysts to be experienced. The persistent signals from the deep, whether born from methane vents or military tests, serve a function far greater than mere plot points in a mystery. They are a perpetual invitation. They ask us to keep looking, to keep wondering, to resist the notion that every corner of our planet has been fully explained and catalogued. They remind us that the world remains a place of possibility, where the tools of science can uncover incredible natural wonders that are every bit as awe-inspiring as any legend. The value of Hy-Brasil lies not in a final, definitive answer, but in the beautiful and ongoing conversation it sparks between the rational and the imaginative, between the data on a screen and the story in our hearts. As this exploration closes, let it be not an ending, but a beginning for your own curiosity. Look to the blank spaces in your own world, the local legends, the unsolved histories, the quiet anomalies that don't quite fit. Embrace the questions that may never have answers, for it is in the asking that we often make our most profound discoveries. The world is still rich with enigmas waiting for someone to listen to their signals. Thank you for joining this voyage into the mist. We're eager to hear which part of this mystery resonated most with you, so please share your own thoughts and theories in the comments.